Buying and selling an internet business. Everything you need to know. What is an internet business? There are many changes that have taken place in business in the past 200 years, but none have so profoundly changed our concept of what a business is as the Internet and the World Wide Web. Until the advent of this electronic forum that reaches into almost every home in America and many throughout the world, a business was primarily thought of as a building with employees, resources, and facilities, and people who bought and dealt with such businesses could easily identify their worth by the materials and net worth of the resources and personnel those facilities contained. This all changed starting in October of 1969 with the introduction of a military construct called ARPANET, created by DARPA to allow a rich communications network that should stay up even in the advent of major breakdowns in our telecommunications networks. At first, this fledgling Internet was used mainly to communicate text streams and message boards. Starting in 1990, it was renamed the NSFNet and began to be loosely managed by the National Science Foundation, which oversaw the extension of the Internet into the CSNet throughout universities across the USA and Europe. When usage began to expand, due in no small part to the TCP/IP protocol developed by Bob Kahn and Vinton Cerf, which is still in use and the standard today, the government opened the net up to privatization in about 1995, and the first online business sites began to appear. Back then, online sites were pretty clunky, used primarily for advertising and showing contact information. But as HTML and other formats became widely accepted, allowing the use of graphics and dynamic web pages to accomplish more and more in this new medium, the sites became more sophisticated and eventually became storefronts in their own right. Much has been written about how the World Wide Web, WWW, changed the nature of business. But in reality, shakeups in business are nothing new, and this new medium, while exciting and certainly unprecedented, is not that different from the industrialization or the creation of communications devices like the teletype and fax machine. Business has always gone with what works fastest, so long as it's efficient and affordable, and this new medium was both of those. Many of the companies who started, such as Chemdex, once a Wall Street darling, have since faded into obscurity or failed because they didn't recognize that not all of the rules for business had changed just because there was a new format available to market to the public. Just as with traditional business models, the basic rules of supply and demand and profitability still held true. There is no such thing as a free lunch. There is a tendency for people to get caught up in things that are exciting and new, and when the hype and excitement exceed the marketability, a bubble can occur, just as that which came about when the dot-com boom of the mid-90s gave rise to any company which went public and had an exciting description or business plan becoming an overnight success story. The problem with bubbles is that they are prone to breaking. At first, the exciting concepts for using the new Internet medium in fields such as advertising, mail order, and online sales proved irresistible to venture capitalists, and the increasing number of easy access to online trading sites which allowed the common man to become an investor drove waves of investors to IPOs that otherwise might not have had a chance of being successful based solely on the plans the company had and not any true business model or market share factors. The bubble reached a peak in late 2000 and early 2001, before fundamental flaws in many companies' models forced a succession of failures, and then the bubble burst. The early concept of most Internet companies was that if you got the customer base, i.e. lots of people coming to your site, that you could make money selling advertising and other link data based on that throughput. It was a sound enough concept in theory, but failed to consider that the modern consumer who was in love with the Internet might simply transition from one site to another once fees or advertising began to hamper their use of the site. With rare exceptions, sites that relied strictly on these advertising revenue models failed, sometimes spectacularly and often in rapid succession. A few of the successes managed to keep their customer base by careful adherence to a few simple rules. Provide value and ease of use. Make any advertising and marketing non-intrusive. Target ads and information to people who would want to see it. Of the companies who succeeded at this, one of the true greats was Google, whose search engine concept was so loved and carefully structured to meet the needs of its user base that people gladly put up with a few advertising links related to their searches in exchange for easily finding the information they wanted. Other companies, even huge software companies with deep pockets such as Microsoft Corporation, were unable to match the blend of usability and customer friendliness that Google offered, and even if their search returns were better from a technical standpoint, the value offered by the leading search engine was so great that the very term for searching the Internet for information began to be called Googling. But this was one of the rare exceptions and not the norm. Today, when most people think about e-commerce and online businesses, they think of the great dot-com boom of the early to mid-90s and the remarkable success stories like Google, Yahoo, and eBay. They often don't consider the early 2000s when so many of the dot-com businesses failed or had to drastically restructure. It's with good reason that the winning names leap to mind, however. Millions have been made both on and with the companies in question. Admittedly, many other sites failed or have yet to become fully profitable, but the billions and billions of dollars spent yearly in online sales is not relegated to just a few big names, nor to those companies who have gone public. In fact, any website that sells products has value. Sometimes just a name itself is worth a remarkable sum of money, and identifying and taking advantage of the business opportunity, companies that may currently be losing money but which have the potential to become profitable, is what this course is all about. E-commerce. There's more to the Internet and e-commerce than just online search engines, auction sites, and online business, though. The term e-commerce refers to the transfer of funds or goods across an electronic medium for profit. Most e-commerce sites today are horribly undercapitalized and run by individuals from their homes, perhaps with a good product and even a great website or domain name, but without the public awareness and marketability necessary to make a true success of it. These types of e-commerce sites are ripe for a budding entrepreneur to purchase, turn around, and either run for a profit or to sell to someone entering the online sales arena. Some key aspects of a successful e-commerce site include having well-organized and defined business models and practices, a focus on meeting customer needs and expectations, an understanding of their customer base, product capabilities, and market base, methods to ensure customer acceptance and security, and quick and reliable shipping and tracking methods. Finding a company that has at least two of these 5 concepts well established but which is underfunded or lacks the ability to correct problems in one or more areas is when an opportunity exists. Another vital aspect of any e-commerce site is how they handle their transactions. There is a host of ways to accept payment both online and directly, and this can be a major bottleneck for many smaller companies. Concerns about online security and having personal information stolen are rampant and can cause an otherwise avid customer to shy away from placing that order and instead go to another site. When bargain hunting for an online site to purchase and improve, this can be a key area to focus on for just that reason. Even the best product at a great price can't entice customers to go out and buy a money order and ship it off if they can simply click to another site and for a few dollars more buy the same item online. Determining transferability. With normal businesses, when you purchase a business, you often purchase its debt as well as its assets. But even then, you may or may not have the right to the company name and marketing already in place. At first glance, this may not seem like such a big deal, since, after all, the product is what you're selling. And when it comes down to it, a good burger is still a good burger, no matter what name is on the sign, right? Maybe. But imagine if you bought out McDonald's and then had to change all the signs and flyers and any trademarked item that identified it as having been a McDonald's. Would you consider that a worthwhile investment? Of course not. The principal value of stores with such wide public acceptance and market share is that they are already known. They have what's called an installed customer base, and that in itself has a value that often far exceeds the true monetary value of the buildings and equipment itself. This is why it's so important that when you're researching an e-commerce site, you understand what is and is not included. What may be a great buy can turn into a huge loss if the domain name can't be transferred to you, or they won't allow a redirect from the existing host site, or perhaps wish to keep their list of customers private. These things all add value, and knowing what is and is not going to be included is vital when you make an offer. Assuming that the site has an online acceptance in a secure format and takes credit cards, you need to know the details of their agreements and what company they're dealing with. Sometimes such arrangements are simple to change over to the new business owner, and sometimes extensive website revisions or legal proceedings have to occur. Any indication of a long-term agreement tied to the business itself needs to be carefully reviewed to determine how that contract will affect a new owner once the business is transferred. Customer contact information. Of all the elements a business has to have to succeed, the one that they simply cannot fail to have is customers. Having the best product at the right time at the right price will do you no good at all if you don't have anyone to sell it to. This is why it's so important that companies have a good method of tracking and maintaining customer lists and contact preferences, and that such information is included as part of their business model and in any sale of the business. There are many different ways to track customer sales, and many different formats to store them in, too. Be sure to find out what methods the existing owner has used, since some are more difficult than others to transfer over. If they use QuickBooks Pro and you plan on using that same program, then you can get a copy of their database and utilize it directly with no real effort. But if they simply keep email records and type in the data as needed, some manual data input and manipulation will be called for, often at your expense. So be sure to consider that in any offers to buy the site that you extend. Summary. Online businesses or e-commerce simply refers to any business that sells or makes available for sale a service or good across the World Wide Web or the Internet. Many of today's success stories, such as Amazon, eBay, or Google, are the exception rather than the rule, with the vast majority of online sales sites being run from home either part-time or as a secondary source of income. Since so many of these sites are personal businesses, a new opportunity has arisen for the canny and shrewd investor, much like the common trend in house flipping, where a home in need of sprucing up is purchased, renovated, and then sold for a profit. These mom-and-pop websites can be purchased and either stand alone or, along with their associated goods and manufacturing capabilities, converted into profit-making centers and then resold to other investors looking for an online business to run, but unable or unwilling to start one from scratch themselves. Most online sales sites will be listed with search engines already and should have at least a year or so pre-purchased on their domain name. But these facts should all be confirmed prior to any actual transfer of funds. It's also important to have contracts and a clear understanding of everything that is included in the sale, both debts and assets, and when and how the transfer will take place. In many cases, since you'll be dealing with smaller and possibly less capable business owners, you may also need to guide them on terms and aspects of the business to ensure they can provide what you need in a format that you can use. As with any investing, knowing the market, timing, and most importantly of all, doing your homework to make sure that you don't run into any unforeseen problems is key to a successful e-commerce site flip. But if you follow a few basic rules and understand what it is you're buying, the opportunities for success are immense. Buying an internet business. Location, 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 the old saying goes, is the key to success for any business. But does that even apply to an online business? Yes. The most important thing any online business needs to have is exposure. If you can't find the site when searching using keywords commonly attributed to the site, then it's underexposed, which may be a key point you can use to your advantage if you're looking for a bargain and hope to correct and then sell a site for profit. But just as with any business arrangement, there are several things that simply have to be done to cover your bets and ensure all the legal ramifications are taken care of. In terms of buying and selling an online business, which may have a small profitability to start with, it's best if you can handle most of these tasks yourself rather than hire professional firms and lawyers, if not for the cost savings, but also so you can identify firsthand any existing issues that provide you an opportunity both to ask for a lower sell price and to correct to make the site more sellable. Business basics. The main concept of any business is actually quite simple. Find and fulfill a need as cheaply as possible to earn a profit. The thing to keep in mind is that if someone else can do the same thing cheaper or with higher quality than you can at the same price point, then you may not do as well as you could, but you can still make money. Having a gimmick such as designer label clothing selling at a higher price point due to perceived value can often put you over the edge. But principally, having a competitive edge, being where customers can find you and managing repeat business sales is the recipe for success. There's more to running a successful business than just making sales, however. Any successful business, whether online or standalone, needs to have an understanding of marketing, finances, and shipping. We'll go over all of these in more detail later, but every business has an approach that works best for it and their consumers, and identifying this and making it part of your business is vital to success. Understanding your market. One of the most important elements of any business is the customer. It's important to know the types of people who buy your product, what advertising and contact methods they prefer, and why they purchase from you rather than someone else. This is a skill, but it is one that can be learned. Some great resources include the Fred Pryor How to Please Your Hard-to-Please Customers, help you identify various personality types when viewed as customers, how to work with them, and which methods of problem handling work best for each. Having such training is invaluable for any business owner, since how you handle your customers plays a large role in what they think of your business and whether they'll be repeat customers. Besides the customer themselves, you have to identify the market for the goods and/or service that you are marketing. If you're selling a one-time purchase such as a car, luggage, or home, you will not likely see the exact same customers over and over, and will need to target your expectations accordingly. This is not to say that you can afford to alienate your customers, since word of mouth is one of the best references possible. But tricks like incentive programs and sales marketed to past customers will not be viable ways to enhance the business for some items. With sales that can be repeat sales, such as vitamins and supplements, foodstuffs, and consumables, however, keeping close tabs on your customers and letting them know about upcoming specials and sales is a valuable way to enhance the website and profitability. Keeping some form of customer relation management software or system in place is vital to such practices. The solutions are as varied as the businesses. From simple Outlook contacts groups to dedicated CRM software, the sky is the limit. But keeping in touch with and keeping customers involved with your business is a sure way to help make them feel like they're part of your success, and thus enhance that all-important bottom line. Bear in mind that not every customer is worth the investment of a mailing or even an email contact, but certainly customers who have already been repeat buyers and those who've purchased in larger quantities should be targeted. Things to consider when looking for customers to track and communicate with include the customer's past purchase patterns and profile, costs to contact them, the likelihood of a return on the investment. Customers who fill out a profile or agree to log into your website are much more likely to be repeat buyers than someone who simply places an online order and declines to be contacted as part of an ongoing email notification process. So having those options on your site are great ways to create profiles on customer spending habits and contact preferences. Nuts and bolts of buying. When you're buying a pre-existing business, for many people, the temptation to neglect considering all the steps you would go over when starting from scratch is great. After all, surely the existing owner has already been through this, right? Not necessarily. And even if they did go through it, you should take this opportunity to identify whether the business model and company type they chose was really the best for the business in question. For instance, they probably have a sole proprietorship, since that's the easiest to set up, but benefits as well as marketability may well justify starting a corporation or at least a limited liability company. A few of the things that you should do once you identify a business that you want to buy and then compare to the existing models and plans of the company include business plans, the marketing concept, the financing strategies, operations guides and procedures, necessary assets and capital equipment to succeed, market research details, available and any outstanding financing, necessary permits and licenses and the status of any current ones as well as transferability of the same, lists of all current assets and debts, and details of any insurance policies. Research the product segment. To create a valid business plan, much of the following steps, including this one, need to occur first: identifying and documenting the product or service that's being marketed, checking out competitors and pricing models for the product, as well as availability of alternative suppliers and dropshippers, etc., all play a large part in the creation of a business plan. Locations to use to gather this information include, but are not limited to, libraries, internet searches on competitive companies, training in business or self-study, paying experts, and researching government and industry reports. Identify cash flow management and a budget. Having cash on hand to make changes, advertise, or purchase the expertise necessary is vital to a successful flip of an internet business. Some funding beyond the initial purchase simply will be required. Having an idea of how much and where it will come from before you buy is vital to a successful venture. Research shipping and receiving. Knowing common sizes and weights of goods sold, delivery methods, and any deals or arrangements currently in place is important. Consider drop shipping if inventory is purchased directly right now. Any way to keep inventories low will minimize the risk, as well as any handling costs associated with shipping and storage. Be aware of your options when it comes to shipping. The U.S. Post Office is not the only choice, and in many cases is not the cheapest or best option for your customer. Depending on your product and market, other options such as online downloads, FedEx, or UPS can be more economical or a benefit worth investing in. Many vendors such as FedEx or UPS will make special deals with small businesses, which can further reduce the costs. Ask about these options when researching the shipping and receiving plans. Sign non-disclosure agreements. This is often overlooked and may not be an issue, but having signed non-disclosure agreements can really help assure the seller that supplying you with the information you need to make an informed decision on their business is safe and that you are a professional. Make certain that you use forms that provide clear descriptions on the liabilities and possible penalties to both parties, since any offers or information that you supply may also be best kept private. Estimate profitability. With the information supplied and your research, make a rough estimate of what the potential sales and market share of this site could be and what needs to be incorporated into your business plan to gain that share. Resources and software are available and will be discussed in more detail later. Make a budget, then make an offer. Bearing in mind the total costs you are likely to incur in transferring the site and updating it to profitability, create a budget that should ensure a profit even if costs go over by 15% or more. Make an offer to the owner detailing everything you need to have included in the deal, the pros and cons of the site and business as you see them, in case he has additional information to offer, and set a deadline for acceptance or rejection. If accepted, refurbish, implement a business model and plans, and put up for sale. These are the nuts and bolts of the process, of which we'll go over in more detail later, as well as supplying you links to some readily available online forms and legal assistance. As with any successful business venture, the amount of work and effort you put into the planning and research stages will ensure or decry success. But if you can handle most of the work yourself without having to pay for research or consulting, an investment of your time can have wonderful returns in future profits. Dealing with owners. I've mentioned in passing some training on negotiation with customers and identifying personality types, but it's worth mentioning here that the owner of an existing internet business needs to be approached just the right way as well. Most likely they're proud of their business, even if it's not a roaring success, and they will be distinct individuals with responses all their own that you may inadvertently trigger if you take the wrong approach. To this end, I highly recommend that you have a clear understanding of personality types and how to deal with each, and that you follow a few simple guidelines to ensure a professional and successful outcome. Some tips I recommend include: contact them directly and in person for the initial contact. Calling someone and hearing their voice allows you to understand the tone and feeling behind the words they speak, as well as make a correct assessment as to how they're responding to you and your tone. Introduce yourself. Let them know who you are and supply contact information up front so they'll feel at ease and not fear that you're perpetrating some type of scam or trying to sell them something. Explain your past successes. Knowing that this is your business and that you think you can make a profit by buying their company and investing some capital to make it profitable can be seen as an insult to some owners. Explaining that you buy ugly businesses may not be the best approach, but be sure they know you're in the business of taking moderately successful businesses and making them worth more, then selling them to people who are looking to start their own online sales. If you have specific websites and success stories, you can point them to this, and that may help. Be sure not to violate any non-disclosure agreements, however, and point out any existing as an example of your trustworthiness, so they'll feel comfortable dealing with you. Gauge their interest. If they simply are not interested, leave them your contact information and then follow up with a thank you email just in case they change their mind. If they seem interested, proceed to the next step. Explain the process. Let them know that while you're interested, there are a series of questions you need answers to before you can accurately judge the state of their business and make an offer. Explain that you always get and sign non-disclosure agreements up front to ensure any information they share is safe, and that you'll not be asking for valuable information such as customer contact lists, although details such as number of customers and CRM methods may be included, and that you guide them through everything you need. Get their information and promptly respond. If you can't review it all and get an assessment immediately, at least contact them and let them know you have the information and will be reviewing it and will make a determination by a specific date. Make certain you meet the date you set and that you update them as you proceed with any financing or checks that are necessary, so they'll know you're still interested and there for them. Create a formal offer and contact them. Again, contact them in person and let them know that you've come up with what you think is a fair offer for what the current market value is for the site and any resources you'll be asking to have included. Ask them to review the offer with their lawyer and let you know by a set date if it's acceptable and, if not, to formally request any changes. Set their expectations up front on which, if any areas may be subject to change, either in their favor or yours, pending unexpected market fluctuations or changes in the business. For instance, if your offer is contingent upon existing stock and they sell most of it before accepting, how much per item will be deducted from the offer should be listed in the offer, or some provisions to allow for setting it before acceptance should be in the wording. Set up an escrow service and make the transaction. Be sure all your legal documents and forms are in place before money changes hands. Use only known and respected escrow services and provide full contact information to the owner, encouraging them to research the business to be certain he's comfortable that this is real and legit. If the owner is comfortable or prefers direct payment, be sure to cover yourself for any potential problem or scam as well. Ensure all selling points, such as transfer of the domain name and any resources, are done before final payment is made. If all goes well, you should now be the owner of an online business and its resources. The next step will be to make it profitable, and in our case, then to sell it for a profit and move on to the next site. Identifying a bargain. To be successful in buying and selling online businesses, just as with any other flipping, whether a home, a car, etc., you need to keep several concepts in mind to ensure success. First and foremost is that there has to be value in whatever it is you're buying. Yes, you can get something cheap, and if you're just owning it, that may be enough. A very inexpensive home that is ratty and really ought to be torn down, for instance, may still be okay for someone who just needs a place to stay and hates to rent. But if you want to fix it up and make a profit, bringing it up to par may cost more than it'll be worth when you're done. The same problem can occur if the location of the home is bad. Even a house with great bones just needing paint and polish can be a bad investment if it's in a declining or bad neighborhood. The same is true for businesses, especially online businesses. There has to be value to the business, or at least the potential for profit, or it simply is not worth bothering with. For online businesses, the storefront is the website itself, and most of the time the actual site is not of any real importance. The domain name and the search engine penetration is really what counts. Finding a site that shows up with all related keywords on several search engines that has a poorly planned or laid out front end is actually a great find. Even if the products are not up to par, the bones are there, and it's in a good location. Having a great domain name or one that is easy to remember is also a plus, although aliases can be purchased and linked to the site if necessary. Just as in flipping homes, finding a bargain in an online business means you need to know the market. Identify the strengths and faults. Understand the costs involved and be able to fund it. Be certain of a reasonable return on your investment. If you can't meet these criteria, then you aren't looking at a bargain. You're looking at a potential money pit, and you should keep browsing. Even hot items go out of vogue. Remember the Beanie Baby craze? And if you can't make money on it, does it make sense to get involved even if it is a hot commodity? Just like a certain stock commercial showing someone buying an item at an auction, then asking to put it back on the block, turning over businesses is not the name of the game. Making money is the game, and that means passing on more sites and businesses than not until you find the right one for you. Appraising the website. One of the most important tools you have to appraise an online business is their website. Not just the way it looks and how functional it is, but how well listed it is and whether it shows up on various search engines when queries are done against product it contains. It's not always a bad thing if a website is under par, however. When you're looking for a bargain, many times small businesses have lower quality sites and rely on word of mouth for their sales, which may have restricted their growth and is easy to repair. The key items you should plan on learning about a business from appraising their website include overall look and ease of browsing the site, search rankings and how stable they are or have been, average costs versus revenue generation, size and unique content of the site, current and past revenue, any affiliate, contact, and link relationships, and what agreements, if any, have been made. Judging the value of existing links is also vital to assessing the value of a site. Domains owned. .com, but what about .edu or .gov or .biz? On paper, there really are only two major factors you consider to value a website: the cash flow projection and historical revenues, and the costs to recreate the existing site. There are many other tools and data points that can be used, and some very involved processes can be applied to identify many other attributes, but when it comes to buying an online business, the historical and future value of the website itself is all you're interested in. And when it comes to bargains, it's hoped that the actual site value is poor, but that the links and cash flow projections will be good enough to indicate the potential for real success. Website rankings and search engine algorithm statistics are also vital to the value of an existing site versus recreation, as this is the principal way most users find products, by searching on the product name or manufacturer on a search engine and browsing the links that show up.